All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Porter, and I'll be introducing the topic of today's webinar, which is campus dining and what that new normal is going to look like during COVID-19. Just some quick housekeeping notes. We've muted everyone and turned off video upon entry. If any questions come up that you would like addressed during the length of this webinar, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A section. We'll be reviewing those at the end of the session, and we'll address and follow up with any of those questions in email after the completion of the webinar. So let's get started. So our host today, we have David Porter, who is the author and founder of Porter Consulting. And we also have Ben Anderson, who is the head of industry relations at Grub. And of course, myself, Alexandra Porter, I'll just be moderating today's session. Moving into the intended outcomes of today, we're hoping that you'll take away, number one, some COVID-19 residential and retail solutions. Number two, how to create some value to justify the meal plan cost. Number three, food insecurity mitigation solutions. And then not number three again, but number four, mobile ordering technology, which we believe is mission critical. Going into some of our background, Porter Consulting over the past 25 years has served over 400 colleges and universities, engaging all 50 states and most of the provinces in Canada, including the US Virgin Islands. We have 11 team members based primarily in Maryland, but they're kind of scattered all over the country. All right, I'm gonna pass it on to David now, and we're gonna get going with the session.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I'm really excited about presenting today, and especially with Alex, but also with Ben. Ben and I have known each other for a long time, and I think this is really a golden opportunity under some unbelievably challenging conditions for all of us to bring these technologies and plans together to really address the COVID challenges in the short term and even potentially the long term. One of the themes we're going to be focusing on today are meal plans, and in my book we published about 5 years ago, we have a chapter on meal plans and the importance of it being the financial backbone of your department. And what we want to do is look for ways to create value using COVID-19 strategies, dining strategies, and the mobile technologies in order to protect that historical pricing and the business model for a couple of obvious reasons, but also in a post-COVID era, which hopefully will come in about 18 to 24 months or begin, that we will not have to try to reconstruct that, or as I like to put it, try to put that toothpaste back in the tube when we try to go back to our former glory with meal plans in the departments. Kind of a typical outline for a reopening strategic plan, and we just wanted to plant these seeds for your own planning purposes, but these would be the scope items that we would want to address in terms of qualitative interview meetings, understanding what your enrollment and your housing counts are going to be for the fall. And I still understand there's a bit of uncertainty about that, regardless of the initial interest and the number of deposits, potentially what students are going to actually do. Kind of taking into consideration these COVID-19 strategies. Ben is going to spend a reasonable amount of time talking about the mobile platform strategies and integration to support these strategies. Also looking at labor, revenue, and expense projections. The meal plans, again, is it possible to keep them intact, or are we going to have to change the way those are structured, or even if they're required or not? And then if there are any venue design or layout implications, of the short-term implications anyway, to accommodate these changes to serve our students. So we wanted to kind of start from the residential dining perspective, and really for illustrative purposes, we wanted to just posit an example of, to give you a case as to how do we create value during the COVID period of time. So let's assume, for example, we have a campus with 1,000 resident students and 2,000 or 3,000 non-resident students with a number of retail locations. We're suggesting that in order to create value using the COVID strategies, which are primarily takeout or a la carte production, packaging, service, takeout, and or delivery based, even in residential locations, but to consider the possibility of developing up to a 24/7 anytime dining ghost kitchen. Now, we all have heard, I think, the term ghost kitchen. So essentially, the ghost kitchen is a full-on, full production kitchen. Could be a wide variety of menu items, very popular menu items, and having the horsepower to produce them. But literally, there's no storefront, or there's no dining room, or no servery open anyway. So your main residential venue on campus, if there's one, there could be multiple locations, could still serve to have carry out, pick up during a breakfast period, a lunch period, and a dinner period. But if you had to limit the actual hours that the servery was open, and if you're going to have communal dining, and certainly some schools are not going to have communal dining in the falls, others are going to have to reduce significantly the number of students they can permit to come in and sit down. And Ben's got some great solutions. He's going to talk about using his Grubhub app to actually reserve seating with that limited space. But there's still going to be a need to serve a larger potential demand of students, and looking at creating value by making dining in its takeout and or delivery form available continuously. Now, whether that's 24/7 or from 7 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, or from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., but having more of a continuum of the ability of resident students to order food and again, have it ready for pickup or have it delivered to their residence halls on campus. And within that production kitchen, we can still present and develop a menu of authentic deli offerings, custom mex, which is our kind of hybrid approach to Chipotle, global fusion options. These can all be on the app that you can scroll through, or a student can scroll through and order that, and Ben's going to talk about that as well. Even late night favorites, so whether it's between 9 o'clock and midnight or 10 o'clock and midnight or 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., still having students in their residence be able to use that mobile technology to order food and have it delivered to their residents. And I kind of like to think of that, or the analogy, I'm not sure if it's the most appropriate, but if you've ever gone on vacation and your kids have been able to order room service and not have to worry about who's paying the bill, it's kind of in the spirit of that approach for resident students, because we're really going to talk also about the opportunity to keep unlimited meal plans intact. So that would be the umbrella. A student would pay for a mandatory meal plan at the historical price, but have the ability to order these items potentially up to 24/7 or till midnight or till 10 p.m., up to 7 days a week. Plant-based and gluten-free options, certainly healthy offerings. Craft burgers are just really appealing, like a smash burger or a Five Guys type burger. You know, so high quality items from your dining ghost kitchen as part of the meal plan. Hence, again, going to the next level and creating more value. It's a little bit of a heavy lift, but it's certainly going to be worth it, we believe, in terms of the student experience, the ability to maintain the integrity of your historical pricing, and the predictable revenue base in the model that creates. Of course, what's not predictable are potentially the number of resident students that will be on your campus, but on a per cap basis, we want to maintain those revenue streams as well. So you can still see, we can still provide a wide variety of very appealing offerings out of the same kitchen that would have produced them, 12 or 13 or 14 weeks ago, under a pre-COVID period of time. Also, in adding value, and actually Sean and I from our team here at Porter Kaw Consulting have actually developed a strategy on a number of campuses like this when we were looking and challenged by our clients to create meal plans for juniors and seniors, not only living on campus, but living off campus. We've had a couple of schools that have said, we want to make it mandatory. We're going to have a 4-year live-on requirement. We want to make it mandatory, or see if we can make it mandatory to have a 4-year full meal plan requirement. And of course, that really requires some innovation and some vision in terms of what do we have to do to add value to make it worth the while of a junior or a senior to feel that it's acceptable that they're getting, what they're paying for in terms of the price value equation. So we proposed on a number of occasions, and as part of this strategy, to develop, for lack of a better way to describe it, pantry boxes. So every student on a meal plan would get a pantry box where they could select a number of snack items, healthy items or whatever you'd want to put on that profile on that menu. It could be a prepackaged protein box with nuts and eggs and maybe some hummus. Could have vegan and gluten-free. And even within the pantry box, under this COVID period of time, pre-vaccine, pre-therapy, we could even include some hand sanitizer and potentially a couple of masks every week. Again, creating value, making it worth what they're being asked to pay for it. Even in a pre-COVID era, oftentimes we were brought to campus and we were told that students were complaining about the price of the meal plans, or they were complaining about the fact that if they lived on campus, they were required to purchase a full meal plan and it became too expensive. We're firm believers that it's not always, quote unquote, the price. It's the price value or the value price. For example, if any of us on this call went into a store and we were charged $2.50 for something that wasn't worth it, we'd probably say, it's too expensive, it's not worth it. But that doesn't mean we can't afford it. And what we've seen with the solutions we've created over the past 30 years on campuses is when we're able to increase the value by strategically adjusting the hours, the menu variety and selection, the levels of service, the environment, and even pre-COVID, the levels of social opportunity and engagement to see and be seen, that value expansion has oftentimes made the argument that previously existed that the meal plans were too expensive moot. That's exactly what our strategies are here. What we want to avoid is what a lot of colleges have faced this past spring, where some families have actually filed litigation to compel schools to refund a portion of the tuition for the remainder of the spring semester because they don't feel that an online education is worth as much as an on-campus education. What we're trying to do is look down the road and avoid that obstacle or inevitability in our minds for your dining program. So if a school continues to charge a historical price for a meal plan, however, because of the requirements of COVID, the hours are limited, the menu's limited, the service levels are limited, it's more takeout, more carryout. We don't want our clients and potential clients to be in a position where there's in October or November, or when schools, hopefully the students return in January, if you do start this fall, are faced with students and parents saying, hey, this isn't working for us. You're charging us way too much money for a much more limited food service operation. These strategies are designed to avoid that. As a matter of fact, we have one client, well, we have clients with meal plans that range from $4,000 a year to $8,000 a year. So our goal is to permit you to maintain your historical pricing so that you don't have to try to reconstruct that in a year or two, but also to protect your revenue base and the integrity of that financial backbone, as I characterize it in chapter 10 of our book, by coming up with some fairly robust COVID strategies using Ben's technology in order to facilitate that possibility. It's definitely a win-win for everybody. We're also going to talk a little bit about commuter students and the ability to have commuter students participate more in plans on your campus. We can call it a food security plan. We want to mitigate food insecurity. And certainly we believe that a good healthy meal is just as important as a textbook. And the reason I've used this quote is because in our next slides, we really want to talk about with commuter students. Last week, we spoke with a good friend of Ben's and mine. His name is Mike Clear from Watchman Payment Systems. And Mike and Ben are working together. So Mike's system at Watchman can actually plug into the database at an institution. So a commuter student who either pre-deposits money in a meal plan on campus in support of a cashless environment, which is a very important COVID strategy, can source the method of payment from Pell Grants, from food stamps, from any scholarship that a student may have. And Mike's system will determine what the eligibility of that transaction is as it relates to the scholarships, and then either process part of it, or let you go to another method of payment. And 20 years ago, I was on a campus in Atlanta, or near Atlanta, where I actually had a young lady come up to me after a focus group, and she said to me, Mr. Porter, can we use our food stamps to pay for our meal plans? Well, today, between Mike's technology and Ben's technology, that's like a no-brainer. It's a slam dunk. So as a critical component of residential meal plans, that critical component of commuter meal plans is also the payment source. And when we can, through Mike's system, Watchman payment systems, link in Pell Grant money, financial aid, SNAP, food stamps, it really provides an opportunity to help mitigate food insecurity for those commuter students, help generate revenues to add to and make your revenue base more robust on campus, and really, again, support the viability of your dining program, not only the residential, but your retail. Cashless transactions as a COVID strategy are just about any of these restaurants we hear about on TV, especially Starbucks with their advertisements or read about in the newspapers. The cashless or the contactless transaction is a common denominator to prevent the spread of the infection on legal tender, or even passing credit cards or debit cards back and forth, or even putting your credit card into one of those little devices mounted on the counter when you have to kind of touch the pad and put in your PIN number or authorize a payment. So we see a lot of takeout, and that mobile technology Ben's going to talk about permits us to pre-order. And Ben's got a great slide and a couple of slides where he's going to talk about where students actually pre-ordered a meal using the app, paid for it, using their meal plan money in some cases, and in some cases just that other method of payment. And then when they got to the retail venue, skip the line and just pick it up. Now in the COVID era or period of time, hopefully an era is only going to be the next 12 to 24 months, this will be a really great strategy for the residential locations as well. Contactless delivery. The ability to, Grubhub is universally known for being able to order food off campus and away from home and having it delivered. But we've even looked at some strategies, and we're developing these with a couple of clients right now, where students living in residences can, again, use that mobile technology to order food, use their meal plan as a method of payment, or because they're on an anytime dining plan, it's paid for, and then have a small group of individual students or employees to deliver to the residences on campus. The elimination of communal dining. There are some schools that are doing this completely, and some schools, again, that are just limiting the number of students that can go in. But again, this gets back to the pre-order, the meal plan pay, the contactless delivery. Again, keep in mind here, we're trying to add value to the meal plans to protect that historical pricing and your business model. The contactless delivery as an extension of resident students living in these residences, ordering food, having it delivered inside the secure perimeter of a residence hall, but then dropping it at a platform or a staging area by the information desk, so a student can come down. The delivery person doesn't go up through the building to a student's room. The student comes down and picks it up at a common pickup downstairs. Ben's going to talk, I think, about also being able to reserve seating once they're inside the residential location. And again, the mobile ordering helps spread out the demand, but it helps eliminate lines as well. 6-foot markers, expand offerings. I believe with the ghost kitchen, it's possible to expand offerings, even in reduction of retail locations. We have a client in New Jersey who wants to close a cafe, and we're able to do that, save the labor and the overhead, but offer that same menu as added to the app that the student will use to pre-order the food from what is the residential kitchen. It's going to be an open kitchen for pickup during the day, a ghost kitchen during the hours that it's not open to come in and between meal periods or later at night. But again, still having a broader menu selection in fewer locations. So actually, in some cases, this could turn out to be even more financially lucrative. Food forward, coming up with strategies to use mobile app to order food on your meal plan from a food truck and or cash or debit card or credit card. And of course, a coffee shop to have that entryway handoff, and even catering. I mean, catering, I guess, is going to be somewhat hobbled, restricted, decimated for the coming year from two fronts. One, budgets are going to be so controlled that a lot of schools aren't going to be funding budgets for departments to pay for the catering, but also depending on the local or the state requirements, there could be a limit to the number of people who can gather, which will definitely impact catering per se. So here I want to pass it off to Ben, and Ben's going to give us an overview of how this mobile technology can really make a big, well, this is kind of the deal maker aspect of what we can accomplish with some of the strategies we just talked about. So take it away, Ben.
Great. Thank you, David. Thank you, Alex. Happy to be joining everyone here today. So just starting with a little bit of a high level of some of these kind of more macro trends in retail, applying to food service as well. And then we'll narrow in on a lot of the examples that David spoke about a little earlier. So what are a couple of things that are happening, right? As technology is entering retail, as it's entering food service, three things that are happening. One is the extension of this point of purchase. So, we're seeing kiosk tablets, obviously with COVID, a lot of people that had invested heavily in these, are looking at how, whether it's antimicrobial screens or just having people clean them off, or, hand sanitizers. We have a lot of operations that are purchasing styluses at bulk, and then basically sort of having a used and a new stylus jar next to the kiosk. But the idea that, the point of purchase used to be this sort of concrete point, and then it has expanded out, in different areas, right? Kind of leveraging like the top left example of Newark Airport, where they just went crazy and spent $120 million on a ton of tablets everywhere. And then on the bottom screen, sort of replacements or different point of sales. So basically taking that point of sale experience and then sort of flipping it to the customer. So you see kiosks a lot, and a lot of this, it really came in the last 5 years when the labor market became especially challenging for food service. What we'll really be talking about today is mobile, right? So the other major extension of the point of purchase has been mobile ordering, and we'll highlight a lot of that today as well. So secondly, the automation of the in-store experience. A lot of these are examples that they can be annoying. The top left, that's the Home Depot by my house in Oakland, and they no longer have, checkout lanes. Everything is self-checkout. So rather than staffing, 6 cashiers in 6 lanes, they've got, 6 self-checkout stations. And then, one person there that's dealing with a lot of frustrated consumers and, trying to be sort of a facilitator and an explainer than someone that's actually receiving the order. So this move from more of a coordinator, facilitator, and then leveraging the technology as point of purchase, and, again, taking some of the back of the house things. So, various examples. A lot of this is being driven by visualization technology. The top one in the middle is an example of something in the Aramark headquarters, where you basically take a handful of candy bars, throw it on that little area there, and then, not through weight and not through barcode scanning, but just in recognition software, so it's able to recognize that this is a pack of gum. The top right, we're seeing a lot of evolution in visualization technology, really driven by the autonomous car companies that's finding its way into different retail. And on the bottom, these autonomous environments, right? Little crazy, but, these sort of fully automated coffee shops, again, depending on the environment, probably pretty expensive, but just this idea that everything kind of becomes operational. And then Amazon Go, this example of sort of a fully autonomous store, where using a variety of technologies, the store knows that you walked up to the piece of gum, grabbed it, put it in your bag, and then when you walked out, it automatically checked you out. And then the third, which is, you had some really nice slides there. I think it was the Chipotle slide of seeing this, but this idea that, if you're doing mobile ordering, if you're moving the point of purchase, you also have to sort of reshape the point of pickup, right? So we're seeing different cabinets. In the middle was the first locker system that I had seen, and it was actually at the Cincinnati ballpark. So the idea, you could order your food in the middle of an inning and then walk up and grab it between innings. And then on the right, an interesting example of sort of these merged pickup points. This is an example in New York, I believe, where there were so many people at this, fitness center, the Soul Cycle, ordering Sweet Green, the salad chain, that they worked in partnership so that, they created the staging area in the Soul Cycle, so you could order right before your class, and then when class got over, your sweet greens would be waiting for you. And then lastly, and you mentioned this, David, when we talk about reshaping the point of pickup, a lot of this is delivery. So just an example here from a few years back, but I really think this is one that the technology is really going to drive forward here in the next 3 to 5 years. Self-driving technology. I really see an environment in the future where the delivery companies are using sort of this automated logistics network that's running through communities, especially closed and secure communities where you're not going to an entire urban area, but like a college campus that's fairly controlled and confined. So definitely delivery is a huge shift in how the point of pickup has changed. And I think we'll see more and more of that as we go forward. So bringing it to the higher ed world, I wanted to start with a little bit of what is Grubhub Campus. As David mentioned, a lot of people probably have an idea of what Grubhub is, but Grubhub Campus is a unit, the old Topingo company that basically we rebuilt our app within Grubhub, and really specifically, as you can see in the top, creating a customized experience for the campus within Grubhub. And why that's so important is as you guys are doing things specifically with your campus, specifically with your meal plan, you need an environment that's specific to your campus, right? So the idea is at our fake Tahoe State University here, if someone opens up Grubhub at Tahoe State, rather than just seeing all of the random off-premise restaurants around them, sort of quote unquote normal Grubhub, they're seeing a specific listing of just those on-premise locations. So again, the idea that creating a very specific storefront for the college, fully integrated with all payment and tender types, real-time ETAs. So a real important thing there, right? There's a lot of things that happen when you move from the point of purchase being physically in store to being someone that's maybe finishing up class and ordering their latte so they don't have to wait in line and they can grab it and not be late for their next class. But that requires, what happens if you run out of stock of items? What happens if class gets out and 30 people order all at once, right? So there's a lot of technology that needs to be developed to make this work in the real world. So you're giving people a clear expectation of how long it's going to take, yet on the back end, you're not overwhelming the operator. And that's the sort of fourth point here. I'll talk about this a little later, but something that we've added in the last 4 or 5 years, sort of this complete front to back of house solution. The idea being, right, that how do you take those point of purchase orders, whether it's kiosk or mobile ordering, and I use this phrasing very intentionally, front to back. So rather than thinking of it having a consumer facing technology experience, and then your back of house equipment, KDS or printer and tablet, right? This idea that those need to meld together. So the consumer experience pushes into the operator experience in a way that's not disruptive. And then last point, for those that may not be familiar, a lot of our business is built around, providing the support and the marketing. Because unlike, a normal point of sale upgrade or something where, a vendor walks in, hands you a piece of hardware and a manual and sort of says, good luck, this is really a new way of doing business. And really, most importantly, it's sort of a thought process. So the idea being, how do we react flexibly? How do we think forward in the next, 6, 12 months? So the idea being, this is less of a piece of technology and more of a tool or a platform that can aid universities and a lot of dining environments in accomplishing your goals. So I want to talk about a few specific examples from COVID, things that we've sort of accelerated through COVID. There's a variety of sort of screenshots, but the high levels are, going from offering your, historically just retail dining made a lot of sense with mobile ordering because, the point of purchase and just being able to execute that ahead of time. Residential dining being more self-serve was a little less relevant. Well, obviously, COVID changed that tremendously. I'm hearing that many universities are unsure if self-service in residential is going to be a thing in the future, right? So the idea of allowing someone to pre-order a boxed meal, as you mentioned, David, one of the things that we have worked very heavily on over this last month or two is getting universities ready for the fall that want to do some level of reservations in the app. So the idea is of rather than ordering a latte and you want to add a vanilla shot and an extra espresso shot, we're just building that storefront for your residential halls in a way that's saying, okay, well, I know that I can only have 200 people in the dining hall between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. So then actually creating a storefront for that residential hall, idea being, okay, well, I'm going to pick the breakfast day part. I'm going to pick 10 a.m. and then I'm going to allow someone to reserve that spot. And whether that pulls a meal from Seaboard, Atrium, Blackboard, whomever, or, you know, we don't pull the meal and it becomes manual. Again, a lot of that's nuanced depending on the campus, but a lot of that is also being able to cap those certain categories, right? So in the app saying, okay, we are only going to allow 50 people to order the 9 to 9:30 slot and another 50 people to order the 9:30 to 10 slot. So just an example of how we became fairly reactive, but again, very quickly reacted to the market to be able to support universities for something that they were never, you know, thinking they were going to do. I remember the first time I heard this idea of reservations in residential dining, and something that, you know, I never thought of. So going even further, right, a lot of what we've seen here, as you mentioned as well, David, is this idea of leveraging delivery. So we had some examples of universities that through COVID, you know, they still had, you know, 700,000 international students on campus. So they needed, in a real short period of time, to be able to create a delivery system to get food to them in real time. So again, being very reactive that way, and you know, exposing some of the opportunities and challenges that. Same idea with a virtual convenience store. You know, those really nice images, David, of some of those box meals, whether it's sort of a meal kit, and really positioning that for upperclassmen that may have their own facilities, or just daily meals, right? There's different ways to handle that, but this idea of sort of turning all of your different food service venues, you know, C-stores, residential, retail, even catering, and presenting that in the technology in a way that makes it contactless, et cetera. And then lastly, this is one that I really like to carve out an asterisk, because some universities, this is going to be something they want nothing to do with, but some may be of interest. This idea of sort of using quote unquote normal Grubhub as a tool to support your dining operation. So a couple examples there. One of the things that we found through COVID, a lot of universities had to send students home, and a lot of universities were looking at, I should say all universities had to send students home, and many universities were forced to refund or roll over meal plans. So we had a group of universities that when they sent their students home and they still had a dining dollars or more prominently a flex dollar plan, they were able to say, okay, we got to send you home, but we're going to allow you to use your flex dollars with local merchants through the Grubhub marketplace and get food delivered. So I really like to call that one. Again, we don't mandate that. We don't force that by any imagination, because we're really centered around the on-premise dining experience. But at the same time, I think it's a great backup plan for a lot of operators going into fall, where if you do have to send kids home, you have a strategy to turn those flex dollars into dollars that can be used for delivery. And then again, there's some things like free delivery for college students that have been embedded in this as well. So a couple examples, you know, just an example of what Virginia Tech did when they had to be very reactive. They went from doing no on-premise deliveries to about 1,000 a day, just again, through the technology. So they still had to feed a lot of international students. So they were allowing students to pick from their different venues. And then they basically had built this little logistic system with golf carts where they were taking food, bringing it to a central staging area, and then doing bulk deliveries to the different dorms. So, 50 people for lunch would order from this dorm, so the food would get collected, and then they'd run it out specifically to that. Another quick example, this is an example of one of the universities that did decide to use their flex dollars in the marketplace. So just a quick visual of where you can see the various tender types. So, as a payment option, we were able to enable the flex dollars for delivery. And then as you can see in the right, not all the tenders, but just the flex dollars became available for those students to order in the marketplace. So whether they were, 10 miles away or 200 miles away, or, it went from LA to New York because that's where they live, they were still able to leverage those meal plan dollars, I should be specific, those flex dollars. Some universities also decided to add dining dollars, but again, totally up to the university. So those are some of the specific COVID examples where we were very reactive in the market, but trying to support the initiatives the universities were working with. I do want to take a little bit of a step back and just talk a little bit more about the technology. So the example on the left is one of these, that's the Ohio State mobile ordering environment. So an image at the top and then just showing those on-premise venues. Ohio State also offers delivery for their on-campus venues. So you can see that tab to the delivery on the right there that allows them to allow students to get delivery from on-premise venues. A lot of, as I mentioned, similar to this moving out of and expansion of the point of purchase, building out kiosks. One of the things I will call out there, we built the kiosks in a way to be very flexible so they can be kiosks or they can be light point of sales. So we've done a lot of projects with Chick-fil-A recently where they built out these kiosks. However, through COVID, they're literally just turning the kiosk from a consumer-facing device, flipping it. It's now an operator-facing point of sale. So kind of being flexible there. Third, just some examples of the back of house equipment, whether it's a kitchen display system or tablets and a printer. And then the last column, just some other examples. The one on the right, I really like to call it, when we talked about how that point of pickup is changing, one of the things we found over the last, 10, we've been doing this about 10 years. Really, when we started working with Starbucks, probably about 7 years ago, we'd find these really busy operations. And even though the technology notified the user in the app when their order is ready, we still found that there was this disruption of a lot of people crowding that pickup area and waiting for their food to be ready. So this is just an example of a TV screen that basically shows, is your order ready? Is it still being made? Or is it in queue? So again, again, can be visually different depending on the university, but just another thing that we found over time that as mobile ordering became much more prominent, we had to think about how the pickup experience changed a bit. So whether that TV is sitting up in a big union building and allowing people just to sort of go in, order their food, and then just glance up and wait till their order is green, or again, ordering mobily and having it ready by the time they show up. And then lastly, no technology system can work without good data. So, building out this entire robust dashboard system that the universities use so they can manage menus, they can get all item level sales reporting, basically making sure that everything that is needed, all the information that an operation needs, the technology is there. So hopefully that was a little bit of a high level for some of you that may be new, for some of you that may be something that you've experienced, but I did want to at least sort of frame the conversation of what that Grubhub campus value proposition sort of is. So let's look at some of these examples in the real world. So again, extending the point of purchase, automating the in-store experience, and reshaping the point of pickup. So this is, as you mentioned, Dave, some data we pulled. Just to be clear, we're not tracking students. This is just sort of high level aggregate data. But what we're going to see here is a series of Google Map charts that shows where people were physically standing when they ordered Starbucks at this University of Rochester Starbucks. And again, it really brings to life this idea of leveraging the technology to push people out, to again, maintain social distancing, to make, rather than everyone having to cram in to the coffee shop to order their food, they're doing it from the library, from the parking lot, etc. So here's the zoom out, and you can see, because the technology needs to be able to handle it, if it's a 30-minute wait or a 5-minute wait, right? That has to be transparent information to the consumer. You see here, people are actually ordering from downtown Rochester before they even head to the campus, because when they look at the app, it shows them it's going to take 25 minutes. By the time they get there, it's waiting. And then when you zoom in, this comes to life even more, right? This idea of, and I always get a little giggle out of the person ordering from the river there. So either it was winter or there's a bridge. But you can see this come to life here, right? So as we zoom even further, you can see how right here that orange coffee cup is the Starbucks, but all the people that are ordering from the library, that are ordering in transit, right? I just finished class and the only way I can get my latte and get to the next class is to order ahead of time. But really sort of activating all these different parts of campus. And it really kind of comes to life there. And another quick example. So this is a healthcare facility, but I'm going to go through two examples. One is blue and one is red. And I want everyone to sort of think through, which do you think is the lunch venue and which is you think the coffee shop. So first off, right, this is the zoom in of the blue dots. Here's the zoom out of the blue dots. And then here's the other venue, the zoom in of the, or zoom out of the orange and the zoom in of the orange. So just think for a second, which one do you think is the grill and which one do you think is the coffee shop? So the answer is, right, the orange is the lunch venue. You can see how people are ordering from the different parts of the campus. They're ordering from the nurse's station or their office. They're ordering from, you know, a lounge area, right? Whereas if we zoom back out, you can see the coffee shop. The behavior is a little bit different. A lot of the people, as they commute in, are parking their car, they're getting off the bus, and then they're ordering by the time that they get there. And then lastly, I just want to talk about sort of how the physical experience is changing in some ways as well. So it's just some examples from Ohio State. Ohio State now has 10 venues on campus that are cashierless. So again, you still have a greeter, you still have someone to, you know, say, hey, welcome to Mirror Lakes in this example, but you can see how those kiosks are sort of replacements of the point of purchase. So this is a really neat venue to see in person. Just kind of crazy how quick the throughput is, how quick the prep time is, and how that transaction, that physical purchase point, is sort of dissolved into this kiosk experience and mobile ordering. So this venue does about, I think, 70% of their orders via mobile ordering and about 30% via kiosk. And then you can kind of see how the in-store experience changes. So, you know, there's the tablet in the back. As we zoom out here, you can see these TVs sitting above the area. So, you know, your order is green as soon as it's ready, or in this case, it's blue when it's ready. And then similarly to what David showed earlier, you can see on the right just how they're using different shelving units. So they've got one shelving unit for mobile ordering pickup. They've got one shelving unit for kiosk pickup. And then you can kind of see very far in the very far right edge of that picture, they have a separate pickup area for the delivery drivers. So if it's a delivery order, they put that right next to the door so people could just stream in, pick up the food, and then go about the delivery. Lastly, just some other examples of things that we have found as sort of relevant parts of this overall puzzle. I think I lost a couple examples there, but basically just some examples of where we're using the technology for lockers. So lockers, I think, are becoming much more prevalent. You know, the idea of you could have a locker system in the base floor of a residence hall, and then the meals could be delivered there. And when the meal is ready, a QR code shows up on the user's phone, and they can just go in and open the door, and you know, away they go with their meal. So just some different ways that you're kind of rethinking how the point of purchase is changing, and then different ways to leverage that technology to ultimately do what, you know, we're doing as operators, right? Getting delicious food to the consumers as quickly, safely as possible. So thanks so much, Dave and team, and I'm sure there's some time for questions here as well.
Yeah, Ben, thank you. Great job. And I think we can all see how mission critical Ben's technology is to support the residential dining in our efforts to create more value, to protect that historical pricing, as well as the financial business model of meal plans and mandatory meal plans, and also retail, and how it's just really changed the game here. Certainly, if you have any questions, please submit them. You've got my email address here. You've got Ben's email address here. And just before we wrap it up, I want to also share with you some information about a sister company we've created. I've got 4 slides here. I also want to make sure everybody is dialed into our webinar next week with Robert Holden from the University of Georgia at 11 a.m. next Thursday morning. But we created a sister company about 6 or 8 weeks ago called Porter Strategic Advisors. And it really is about developing campus-wide COVID-safe strategies to look at campus-wide solutions to keep campuses safe, but also to help mitigate outbreaks that would require a campus to be threatened with a shutdown, as everybody went through mid-semester in the spring. So it's really about college university reopening strategic planning, and it's a collection of science-based mission-critical strategic components in a pre-vaccine world. And it's really an element of all these aspects: housing, classrooms, residential dining, infectious disease and epidemiology. We've got specialists in all these areas that we're teaming with, high flex class modeling online and in classroom at the same time, and some science-based strategies like surveillance testing, contact tracing, isolation, treatment, and so forth. So certainly we're all going through a difficult time, not just for dining, but campus-wide. And then certainly in order to have a robust dining program, it kind of helps to have some students on campus too. So we want to make it appealing and safe for students to come back to campus and their families, but we also want to keep it safe for them to stay there throughout the semester for their benefit, but also for the benefit of the school. So,
and I just want to add one more thing. I absolutely, it's a crazy time, and everyone is having to put the business on, upside down to be able to react to this. But I do want to say I'm very bullish about on-premise dining, especially with this technology. One of the things, sort of why we are a college-focused company, is this type of technology works best of any type of environment on colleges. And only part of that is because of the students as sort of an innovative user base. If you think about what makes this technology work so well, it's about frequency and proximity, right? So how frequently are these transactions happening? And then what's the proximity of the user, or the clustering of venues, right? So as we look at how delivery is going to change over the future, whether it's leveraging ghost kitchens, as you said, David, whether it's using residence halls after they close, or through COVID, right? Just sort of activating residence halls and making them sort of hubs for delivery. Nowhere else, do you have such a high concentration of people so closely located next to the dining venues. So universities are always going to have this huge competitive advantage against the outside world because of the proximity and the clustering of the locations. They're always going to be able to do delivery more efficiently than any other entity. And then when you add meal plans, right, this idea that you can have these tenders and some of the stuff that we were very excited about, and it kind of stalled a little bit through COVID, but really making a meal plan just for upperclassmen for delivery. So, being able to say, okay, well, we're going to do a delivery meal plan for seniors for the apartments. It includes one boxed meal a day, and some dining dollars, whatever it is, but just really thinking about the technology as a tool and leveraging that tool creatively to accomplish all the goals, not just of today for the dining environments, but how we sort of use it as our guide into the future.
Couldn't have said it better, Ben. Anybody who would like a copy of this webinar, we have recorded it. Just drop us a line and Cezanne will forward you a recorded version of this webinar. And again, I want to thank everybody for participating, especially Ben. Ben, you're great. Love what you do. Miss seeing you at conferences. It's been a while, right. But it's nice to connect this way too, and continue to share our experience, what we each do best with the marketplace, with our clients and potential clients, so that we can all kind of feel our way and find our way through this difficult time. So thanks everybody, and thank you too, Alex.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.